Okay, welcome. Gosh, we have the inauguration of SoulCon, and we are here at Glass Axis. It's Friday evening, and we're making the best of it given the situation with the world today. And we're going to have some fun. Just mark your calendars for September 10th, 11th, and 12th when SoulCon will be virtual. We'll have lots of programming coming up. And please keep your eyes open, social media, for all of the marketing for those events. And now we have J.M. Hunter with us, who's going to walk us through his incredible work here. J.M. has been with SoulCon since the very beginning, and in fact moved to Columbus as a result of SoulCon, I'd like to say. And he was also one of our co-sponsored interns this summer with Glass Axis and SoulCon, and was able to create something new with his skills, his comic book, his illustration skills. And with that, J.M. Hunter.
Thank you. All right, take this off. It's almost like I'm revealing my secret identity, taking that mask off. So thank you so much for having me, and we're going to start talking about the artwork. And so it starts when I was younger. I was influenced by superheroes, especially the primary colors of red, blue, and yellow. Being a third-generation comic fan, my grandfather had the first Supermans and the first X-Men's and Joe Palooka, comics of that nature, before my uncles read them in the bathtub and destroyed, our inheritance. And then my father was more to the Bronze Age with 80s Conan and Spider-Man and Luke Cage, comics of that. And then I didn't even grow up with my father, but yet I still found my way into comics. So specifically the late 80s and the 90s. So those primary colors, that pop sense of excitement, Jack Kirby and whatnot, has always been an influence. And so when it came to me doing my own artwork, I always wanted to be a superhero. I always wanted to be in the comic books, especially when I didn't like my circumstances. I would always daydream about being something else or someone else. I mean, I guess that's why I've got some comic-inspired tattoos. Little did I know that the real world would come crashing into those dreams, and as the real world tends to do, it takes its pound of flesh and a little bit at a time. That would later on influence not just my comic book making background, as well as my painting and the way I express myself through my art. So what started happening was social issues started coming into play. Being Black, Filipino, Native American, Blackfoot, and then German Hungarian, I was at a crossroads of identity confusion, not knowing exactly who I was, but yet still being impacted by events that would happen to marginalized people, as well as just being young and dumb. I'm going to make that part. So basically, what I would find later on when I was painting, when I was doing art, I was internalized, taking everything that was internal, everything that I had internalized, I could throw onto a canvas. I could beat up this canvas, and this canvas could take it. So by the time I would have done painting, I would have felt like I got a workout. You wouldn't know it by looking at me now, but I used to work out this way. So basically, what I would be able to do is anything that was bugging me, I could put on the canvas. And the intensity that some people say accompanies my artwork was honestly just emotions being exercised out and onto there, and then I could maybe get a few moments of peace and quiet and feel like I accomplished something, and then move on to the next piece. And it just tends to build up. So basically, it would build up to the point where I would finally just have to go and do art. I tried not doing art for 3 years because I was frustrated with my art, and I quit. And it was some of the most maddening times ever, not using something that I used to filter the world and just my lens. And I remember almost going nuts because I could not express myself. So I finally jumped back into art out of necessity because my friend and I wanted to do comics. And I wanted to just be a writer at that point in time. I didn't want to draw anymore. But eventually I could draw, so it just made sense for me to draw. And then I found my way back into comics, specifically independent comics. So superheroes, as much as I like them and enjoy them, I felt more of an affinity to creating independent comics because you can tell any type of story you want with that. You can express yourself or express somebody else's point of view, another culture, another marginalized group, another or just something that happened in your everyday life, autobio, memoir, things of that nature. You can tell any type of story you want with independent comics. You don't have to wear a cape. So that was the draw. That was the beauty of doing alternative independent comics and underground zines and just comics and stapling, putting together your own type of work, especially for those of you that like maker type of work. So with this particular painting, this is called America's Greatest Hits. What I did was take aspects of lyrics from the 60s and 70s, classic rock, like stuff that you would see in Forrest Gump on the soundtrack. We got Riders of the Storm, Doors, we've got Jimi Hendrix, Hey Joe. There's probably some other songs in there that I've forgotten, but I took parts of those songs that I felt were reflective of the 60s and 70s, especially during the civil rights era, especially during marginalized and black people's plight. And I accompanied the lyrics with these images that were happening, as well as the redness and the hoodie. I think that shit is self-explanatory, but we will just go ahead and go through it with the iconic imagery of what happened to Trayvon Martin, which is wearing the simple red hoodie and being profiled and then eventually being assassinated. So this is something that happens quite often. It's not a new revelation, it's not a new story, it's an old story, unfortunately. And so I take that type of toxicity, that pain, and I put it on the canvas, and I'm telling a story and just kind of feel like I need to document this. So moving on, in regards to documenting, I've got this piece right here that is going to be in the upcoming Border X anthology. Mauricio Planero, I believe, is the publisher. And this is a page out of the story that I actually took a person that was an undocumented immigrant that was fleeing a situation and going over the border. This was a pregnant teen. She already had a 2-year-old son, and she was pregnant. Both of the fathers abandoned her, so she went over a raft over the river, walked in the desert, and turned herself into the border agents. But this particular piece I'm calling Ice Cold because in the ICE detention facilities, they were treated like horrendously. They were left to sleep on the floor. Babies were left to sleep on the floor. Not working toilet plumbing. They barely were able to take baths. So this whole layout is basically her sworn testimony put into comic form. And it's one of my favorite pieces only because it was such a challenge confronting that and trying to tell someone's story and do it justice. Whether or not I did it justice, I guess it's up to the reader, but I know I was honored to go and try and take a crack at it. I also have a sense of humor, believe it or not. So when 2016 happened, it kind of rocked my world as I believe it did for other people. And anytime a certain individual would get me angry, I would just go draw a bad picture of that person. So we've got the little dollop of mustard that looks like a toupee, the cocktail weenies, the Cheetos, the cheese, the grease in the wheels and whatnot. And this one's titled 45 Reasons for Freedom. This was also inspired by Mad Magazine and satire and humor comics of that nature. So I was just having some fun with it. If you can't do anything about your situation, if you can maybe get a laugh out of it, I feel like that's a little more healthier than taking out your anger on in other ways that will only end up hurting you. Right here. And then over here in the corner, we have more of that humor when I can't say this happened in the past because it's still happening, where you will have white people that will call the cops on other people for being black, for people that are barbecuing, people that are just trying to get a swim in the pool, people that are actually attending college and having a nap in the student lounge on the couch and they're being called upon for just existing and for selling water, a little girl selling water, and it keeps happening. It's nothing new. It's every month we get a rash of these videos where people are calling the cops on somebody else and after being profiled for just being black, which has unfortunately led to a lot of death as well, because once the cops get called, that black person or that brown person, that person might have a life expectancy of limited range, depending on how the cops or the law enforcement is feeling that day, and depending on whether or not that black person, that brown person goes through all the passive rules and body language to try and tell these peace officers that they are not a threat. So while I do take some humor with this, we do have to acknowledge the reality that faces marginalized groups, as far as black trans women are ending up being killed at the border, LGBTQ groups as well. There's so many groups right now that are under fire and under attack that you can get whiplash just trying to look at all of them. So I try and capture that and put it into a piece. And obviously it starts at the top. So we have the White House there, and then as the phrase goes, shit rolls downhill. Well, I mean, that's kind of self-explanatory. So now as we move back to the piece over here that I did, this is a piece where I used the model with my friend Guy Pope's another artist, part of AR Studios. That's his and mine's collective. And he is the black male in the hood. So it's kind of unfortunate that we have to worry about our wardrobe and making sure that our wardrobe isn't going to get us killed. I love hoodies, I love jeans, I love casual wear, and I don't want to have to worry about fitting the description just based off of whether or not I wear some skateboard clothes or some hip hop clothes. Sometimes these clothes are the ones that fit. With my addiction to donuts, I've got to wear what I can do. So I don't want to be killed for it though. But basically, the guy right here is represented with a portrait, a little bit of a busted lip, a little bleed. So there's a bit of a fighter's mentality. Like, yes, you need to be suppressing us, suppressing society right now, but we might get cut, we might get bleeding, but we're not out to fight guys. And then we can pretty much wrap up this particular body of artwork. We're talking about this piece right here. This piece was all the words and texts were things that were being said to me. People that were telling me that I wasn't a man, my masculinity being stripped from me. Little did I realize back then in 2010 that my masculinity isn't something that is like, it's only a perception based off of other people. So once I came to terms with my own masculinity not being something that has to man up or be like this ultra aggressive type to fit this description again, it was so freeing. I had so much more freedom and so much more less weight on me, not trying to burden myself with what other people are thinking about that makes me more of a man or whatnot. So this is called Man Down. So it's kind of a way of eventually coming to the conclusion that this perceived, especially also within the black community and within the brown community, it's machismo type of thing. Yes, we like superheroes, but what I like about superheroes is the idealism and the fact of helping people and fighting for a better world. I don't necessarily need all the muscles all the time, you know what I mean? I don't need to have this aggression all the time and just kind of further fueling that patriarchy. So that's dated, it's time to flip the script. So that's this final piece here. So if there's any questions, or I can go on with that. I'm from Southern California, so heavy metal is my first love, but hip hop is in my blood. You know what I mean? That's how I phrase it basically. So using text elements and knowing that there are messages, and also text to me is another form of artwork. So being able to incorporate text and messaging along with the regular imagery was something that marrying the two was something that I really, really enjoy doing. And any chance I get, I try and do that. Especially since I don't have good penmanship, but in this type of situation, I don't necessarily have to have good penmanship. And I failed typography on my undergrad. I think it twice, you know what I mean? But yet I'm still using it here. So there's always a way. You just need to find a way where it works for you and bring your own aesthetic to it. But to answer your question, yes, most definitely. So it's fun exploring. So there is a piece that we neglected to mention, and I apologize to Glass Axis for that, but I had the pleasure of being able to create my first glass piece of artwork. So we took an Aesop fable Any something, and we were supposed to incorporate that into glass. So I thought sequential art, colors that pop, and this fable. How do I tell a story with that, with the medium of glass? My something was the two goats. If you know the two goats, it's these two probably masculine, heavy goats, both butting heads on a bridge, and neither one wants to move so that the other one can progress and move forward. So I try to capture these two goats going head to head, but then if you also look at it from a distance, it might create a singular image of one larger goat or a ram, some type of hoof creature with horns, basically. So I like trying to play with that, as well as play with the color elements, and then incorporating the sod and metal and things of that nature. Anything that I work on, I'm trying to tell a story. So I have comics on the brain and sequential art on the brain nonstop. And so even with glass, even with wood, and I've done sculpture, I'm still telling a comic story with that work. So I just want to thank Glass Access for giving me this chance and SoulCon for letting me come here and experience a whole new medium to work in. It was really fun. I encourage you, if you like working with your hands, if you don't think you're an artist, just start working with your hands. And I guarantee you, you're going to find that art, or it's going to find you. So that was fun. I can't wait to explore more mediums of glass. All right. So I think we're at the end of this, but what I want to do is re-mention that SoulCon is happening virtually September 10th, 11th, and 12th. So we've got other programming happening tonight here at Glass Access, as well as more interviews and more material with the 5th year of SoulCon. Celebrating the road to SoulCon and what's come past, present, and what we hope will be the future. So thank you so much.
You're good, everybody.
All right.
That was great, Jeff.
Obama can say Trump as much as he does, and I feel say Trump as much as I do.
You just paused. You did.
He says, I counted. My first grade teacher counted my mom, so I was mad at him.
With us to talk a little bit about this piece and what inspired her Alien 2016 and the materials and how this kind of, works into kind of popular cultural imaginaries. And yeah, tell us all about this piece.
Great. So I was so excited to make it. Basically, I see the world through stained glass. So anything that I see, I wonder if I can duplicate it through glass. So that's something that I did here with the Alien. Just wanted to see if I could do it, and I could. So everything I make, I enjoy because I've enjoyed seeing it, preliminary through glass. This one, let's see. It's a little risky because it's so dark, but I think that even though it was made in 2016, it makes a lot of sense to continue to show it because it is, popular culture. There's so many generations that identify with Alien, and I think a lot of times we feel kind of hazy. We feel alien, and I think it really connects with not only what you love, but kind of how you feel. So this was fun to make. I loved it.
It's really interesting because for someone like me coming into this exhibit space where we have a lot of POC creators, a lot of Latinx, a lot of African American, JM who's Blackfoot and African American, Filipino, seeing this piece where you have an alien and then you have this kind of, this real like jet blackness to it, it resonates in all sorts of different ways with me in particular. Some of my family members being called alien, not civilized, not included. Right. And, so like you said, tapping into and recreating something that's part of the popular cultural imaginary, but we all do something a little different with that stuff, right?
Exactly, yeah. It's a fantastic point because I think, particularly with the Alien franchise, you grow up learning that the alien is the villain, but especially for me when I made this, I fell in love with it. So it's really just how you look at it, and all of a sudden it's not a villain anymore. You look at it through totally a different lens and a different perspective.
Yeah, maybe even someone kind of defending their own life, pushed backed into corners, kind of violence, but violence as a kind of last resort, really.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Survival. Yeah.
Survival,
Absolutely.
right.
And that's kind of what we're all living right now. So, yeah.
Gosh, thank you so much, Rebecca.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.